Thank you for coming today. We are pleased to announce that Timothy Banowetz has pleaded guilty today to 1 count of first-degree murder of Randy Gori and 2 counts of armed robbery. Nothing can heal the terror and loss that Timothy Banowetz has caused the Gori family and this entire community. But at least today we have some measure of justice and some measure of closure. This week our team was prepared and ready to prove beyond any reasonable doubt that Timothy Banowetz is a cold-blooded murderer and a terrorizer of children. I cannot talk about plea negotiations, but I can say we found out Banowetz intended to plead today just minutes before opening arguments were to begin. We weren't prepared to give him much. After all, the evidence, which I will review, is overwhelming. But to save the family the trauma of reliving that terrifying night almost 2 years ago, and with their full agreement, we agreed to an open plea on the murder and the 2 armed robberies of the children, dismissing the other counts. The practical effect is this: Banowetz is now facing up to 70 years in prison, and we will be arguing for that maximum number. So, for all practical purposes, he will never see the light of day as a free man again. Why would Banowetz plead guilty now? Well, nothing focuses the mind like having to face a jury of your peers. And who can understand, frankly, the mentality of someone who commits this kind of crime? Let's review some of the evidence. Banowetz is on video the night of the murder at Randy Gori's house, threatening Randy Gori and his children as they arrived home from dinner with a fake gun, forcing them to the ground and zip-tying them all. He stole thousands of dollars from the home. He was interrupted in his attempts to find more money in the house, which Randy insisted was not present, when another brave witness showed up. We believe at that point, Banowetz, enraged that his plan was falling apart, viciously stabbed Randy Gori in the basement of his home. His children were not present for this, thank God. In fact, we believe Randy's final act was to intentionally lead Banowetz away from his children to a distant part of the house to distract him and protect them. Then Banowetz, with Randy's blood on his hands, attacked this arriving witness in her car, though her 2 large German shepherds protected her and he retreated, stealing Randy's Rolls Royce and fleeing. This witness then called 911, and the investigation began. It was soon discovered that investigators had, the morning of the murder, towed a truck belonging to Banowetz from a wooded area about 1/2 mile from the Gori house. Investigators, and the investigators on this case were fantastic, following a hunch, went to that spot the next morning, and Timothy Banowetz walked right out of the woods with Randy Gori's blood on his shirt, saying he was looking for his truck. As he reached for his identification, a note fell on the ground in front of the investigators. And this murder note told the entire murder plan with a to-do list in black and white. Timothy Banowetz was taken into custody, and the Rolls Royce was found nearby in the woods with Randy Gori's blood and Banowetz's DNA on the steering wheel. When Banowetz was interviewed, he said, "I don't think you need me to admit to anything. You guys already have what you need." And that statement was probably the only truthful thing he has said since he finally pleaded guilty today. The computer evidence in this case was particularly disturbing. A search warrant was done on Banowetz's computer, which was found in a study room in his school in St. Louis. And his internet search history allowed us to, in some sense, enter into his very warped mind. It showed that Banowetz started searching for Randy Gori around September of 2019. Of note, on January 13th, Timothy Banowetz had to pay a tuition payment of over $10,000, money which he did not have, or he would be kicked out of pharmacy school, and that date was quickly approaching. A few internet searches tell a particular story. On the 27th of December at 4:03 a.m., on Timothy Banowetz's search history, it shows him looking at photos of Randy and his children on Instagram. That same morning, 40 minutes later, he's looking for binoculars online from Walmart. The next evening, he's at Walmart on video buying the binoculars. On the 30th of December, Banowetz is Googling, what does $1 million look like? That same morning at 2:45 a.m., he's looking for zip ties online from Walmart. The next evening, he's looking at a photo on Randy's Instagram of him and his children. 2 minutes later, he's looking at a fake gun online. And 3 minutes after that, he's looking at Randy's home on Google Maps. The murder note tells an even more chilling tale. It says, among other things, watch with binoculars from woods. Binoculars, we have him on video buying. Use gun and knife to subdue. We have him on video doing exactly that. Zip tie hands and duct tape mouth. Have withdraw $4 to $6 million from the bank. Kill all of them and take zip ties and duct tape off. Reminder, he has been looking not just at pictures of Randy, but of his whole family. Burn bodies and house. The bottom line is this. Nothing in Banowetz's extensive online history, or the incredible investigation in this case, or the written materials on his person indicates that anyone else was involved in this terrible crime, or that he had any personal relationship with Randy Gori at all. Further, Banowetz was given multiple opportunities in the course of this investigation to unlock his phone for investigators, and conveniently forgot his code every time. The evidence in this case tells a simpler tale. Greed and envy in a warped mind, which caused a terrible, cold-blooded murder for money. I want to thank Lauren Miracle in this case and Jacob Harlow, the two prosecutors who did a fantastic job. They were prepared and ready, and I think that's what caused the plea today. I want to also thank you to the investigators. Again, an incredible investigation. We had over 200 exhibits prepared for this trial. It was going to be a tour de force on what a proper criminal investigation looks like in the 21st century. And thank you to Judge Knapp for a fair, impartial, and professional proceeding. Judge Knapp is nothing if not a professional. But thank you especially to the Gori family, and our prayers go out to them tonight. They have been through so much. They have showed amazing courage and resilience in the middle of a nightmare. And they now deserve the privacy and respect from all of us as they continue their healing process. Thank you. With that, I will take any questions.
What do you think was the single greatest factor impacting his decision to plea today?
Some people can't admit they did wrong until the last possible moment, and this was the last possible moment.
We had several legal experts tell us that the fact that he had contributed so much political contributions to Judge Knapp that this could have been overturned. So my question for you is, why take that risk? Were there no other judges taking this?
One benefit of a plea deal, one benefit of a guilty plea, is that it removes many aspects of appeal. So, again, Judge Knapp is a fair and impartial judge. In Illinois, we have judicial elections. That's just the reality. In this case, the defense saw no need or no merit to any sort of argument that there was a true conflict in this case. But that being said, the defendant just pleaded guilty. And so that removes any shadow of a doubt or any lingering concern over that issue going forward.
Will you still be requesting the death penalty?
So we don't have the death penalty in Illinois, but in this plea deal, the plea deal with the full support of the family involved to make sure that they didn't have to go through this nightmare again, has a practical cap on it of 70 years. So the max punishment for the murder is 60 years, and then for each of the armed robberies, we've given a cap of 10 years each. So that would be, if you combine the two armed robberies because they run concurrent to one another, that would be a maximum punishment of 70 years. And the reason why that is not giving him much is Banowetz is 30 years old. If given the maximum sentence, which is what we would argue for, he'd be in his mid-90s if he ever got out of jail. So that's what we call a de facto life sentence, which is what we'll be arguing for.
The judge at one point today said a life sentence is possible depending on the heinousness of the crime and if they find it exceptionally brutal. So is that up to her discretion or is that part of the plea?
No, so that may have been a reason why he pled guilty, because had he gone to trial, that would have been on the table. Now that he has pled guilty, that is no longer on the table. The maximum sentence that he would face is 70 years. The reason why that's not too much of deference to him is because he's 30 years old. He would be very old if he ever got out of jail, and we don't think that would practically happen. So that's no longer on the table because of the plea negotiations, and but that would have been had he gone forward with trial today, which is what we were fully prepared to do. It was going to be a very packed few days, and I think he saw that our trial team was about to steamroll right over any possibility that he could claim innocence in this case, and he took this way out.
What are the next steps from here?
So we'll be having a sentencing hearing, which will be announced soon, will be set by the court. And at that sentencing hearing, we will put on evidence, more evidence, much of the evidence that I've gone over today, but more, victim impact statements that will allow the judge to have all the evidence she needs to sentence him in this case. And then he will have the opportunity to put on any mitigation evidence, if any, that he has as well. So that will determine the sentence. So this is what's called an open plea. There's no guarantee of the sentence. He hasn't agreed to a number, but he's agreed to a range. And the range has a high end that we believe we have a very high likelihood of reaching because of the true heinousness of this case and the facts of this case. So I can't talk to plea negotiations in the past. But I would say that the plea today was something we were willing to accept to spare the family additional anguish, knowing that the heinousness of this case is likely going to allow us to reach the top end of that range so that he can stay in prison for the rest of his life, practically.
Did the family seem pleased with this outcome? I mean, just moments before trial, lots of emotions.
You know, I would rather everyone kind of keep the family out of this at this point. They've been through so much. Of course, they're incredibly emotional. But let's let them grieve in peace, and let's focus on Mr. Banowetz here, who has now admitted today to be a cold-blooded murderer, armed robber of 2 children. And let's let the Gori family grieve in peace and move on, and let the entire the community that he knew, all the people that loved him and knew him, let's let them grieve in peace, and let's focus on the true problem here, which is Mr. Banowetz. I'd appreciate that from all the members of the press.
One more question.
How did he know to target him? Were they familiar with each other already?
We have no evidence that they knew each other at all prior to, again, this tuition payment becoming due. Mr. Banowetz has evidence that he's a car enthusiast, that he knows a lot about cars. Randy Gori had many cars, and so he knew that he had money. We also have evidence online with online searches that this was not the only rich person that Banowetz was doing searches for. So we believe that's the connection. Greed, a looming tuition payment, desperation, and a very warped mind that would murder a father and 2 children just to get some money.
Did he show any remorse or apologize? Did he show any remorse or apologize to the family yet?
I have seen no remorse from Mr. Banowetz.
Was the plea surprising?
in this business, not much is surprising. Some people wait to the last minute. Some people want to make sure they want to deny even to themselves up to the last minute. But again, the evidence in this case is absolutely overwhelming, and I think he obviously knew that and wanted to spare himself that, perhaps. But you can only delay justice so long, and in this case, opening statements were about to begin in a few minutes, and that was the last time he could delay justice any longer for Randy Gori.
Does this case seem unusual to you in your legal career? Have you ever?
Can you repeat that?
Does this case seem unusual to you in your legal career? How does it stand out to you?
When prominent members of our community are viciously murdered, it's very unusual. Any murder is unusual. Those are a tiny percentage of the cases that we deal with. So yes, this case is unusual, but it's also overwhelming. It's, again, a simple tale, which many people have a tendency to not. They always want to think there's something additional to that. But the tale here, we believe, as shown by the evidence, is simple and terrible. Greed and envy and murder. So in that case, it's as old as time, really. But it's something that our community is going to take a long time to get over. Anything else? Say again? Yes, I think our whole team is very satisfied. So we're happy to spare the family with this terrible ordeal they were about to go through again. And Lauren and Jacob are true professionals. They have worked hours, days, weeks to put this case in front of a jury, and they were fully prepared to do so. Had Banowetz not decided to plead guilty at the last moment. So we're all happy in a sense, but no one's really happy because this is a terrible case. So
Probably take a minimum of 30 days before that hearing.
probably, but you'll soon find out. Thank you. I appreciate all your time. Yes.
Now that the case is closed, will the investigative file be made public?
So the evidence that I just brought forth, I have done so because he's now been found guilty. Prior to a finding of guilty, any evidence that we discussed would have possibly tainted the jury, so we didn't want to make sure there's no appeal issues. But now that he's pled guilty, it's worth talking about the evidence. The additional evidence that that the public will be have available will be made available to the public at the sentencing hearing, not prior.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.